Hi there, it's Mark here to share another thought for the day with you. Well, actually, I'm going to be sharing a poem with you, if that's okay. I was leading collective worship in a couple of local schools this week, and I was sharing on the character of Joseph, and it reminded me of this poem that I came across. It must be a few years ago now. It's written by Godfrey Rust. I may well have adapted it along the way, but I'd like to share it with you today. And as we engage imaginatively with the Christmas story from Joseph's perspective, I really want you to consider if it in some way allows you to enter in to this familiar story in a new way. I wonder if it gives you a fresh look at the story of God sending Jesus. If you simply enjoy the poem, then that's absolutely fine as well. So here we go. It was midnight in Bethlehem, 0 AD. There were a couple of people in difficulty. See, out on the street with a donkey and wife, Joseph had reached a bad point in his life, with the kind of a problem that won't go away. A woman in labour and nowhere to stay. See, now the root of it all, if you boil the thing down, was there was just too many people in too small a town. See, little old Bethlehem, it wasn't designed to cater for David's prolific line, but still the problem was there and he couldn't disown it. They'd left it too late. Joseph had blown it. See, if only they'd finished packing the evening before and not gone back to check that they'd locked the front door. If they'd not missed that turning at the roundabout. If they'd filled up the donkey before they set out. If only you'd booked on a National Express. Well, that would have done nicely, but this was a mess. There was no room at the inn. No room anywhere. And so they were given the only place that was spare. And so the promised Messiah was born that night on the floor of a stable without any light, and where they cut the cord and they cleaned up the mess and they wrapped him in somebody's workaday dress. And while Mary slept there, exhausted and cold, Joseph sat by feeling helpless and old. This wasn't the way he thought it would be when the angels had told him that destiny had chosen them to look after the Holy One. No, this was a farce. What God had done was to entrust the care of the Saviour instead to a man who couldn't even find him a bed. See, if only he'd planned it more carefully then, if only he could go back and do it again. He turned round in his mind the ways he had blundered. He looked round the stable and he started to wonder if it all was a lie and if he was a fool, the object of everyone's ridicule. If the dreams of the angels were tricks and were not what they promised to be, and his anger grew hot, he was breathless and wild. But he stopped in his tracks when he saw the child. See, Joseph was silent as finally he saw this was how it was planned to be. That the smell and the dark and the dirt and the pain were not Joseph's mistake, but God's choice once again. See, well past midnight in Bethlehem, Joseph knew that people would be saved despite all they might do. He couldn't control it. He didn't understand. He felt like a child himself in God's hand. He thought of his anger and he flushed now with shame. He remembered that the angel had said that the child's name would be Jesus. God saves. And then he glanced up and he saw that day had dawned. And from the floor, Mary looked up at him quizzical on her straw bed as the tiny God-child cried out to be fed. And so Joseph moved to the business of this new day and gave the child to his mother and to the donkey some hay.